So this is going to be a very different type of video from what I've made before. No black metal or video game modding or Linux this time. This is going to be a very personal reflection on some thoughts and feelings I've had throughout my life and how they have led me to where I am now. I'll be talking about gender, sexuality, autism, mental health, drug abuse, how it's all connected, what I've learned from it, and what I'm doing now to become the person I've always wanted to be. I think I have a story to tell that isn't quite like any other I've seen here on YouTube, but I'm certain I'm not the only one who has gone through or is going through something like this. And if this can reach just one other person and help them understand or come to terms with their own experiences, then it will be more than worth it. To start off, I'll get some admin out the way. My name is Avery. I use they them pronouns and I identify as non-binary. I also have autism. I was professionally diagnosed when I was a child, probably about 7 or 8 years old, and the official diagnosis I was given was Asperger's syndrome. But I don't like that term for a whole number of reasons that I won't get into. I'm on the autistic spectrum, and that's all you really need to know. Growing up with autism presented a lot of complex challenges for myself, my parents, my teachers, my peers, pretty much everyone in my life. I was an outcast, I didn't fit in anywhere, and I had very few friendships that often didn't last. I was very prone to outbursts and tantrums. I lacked the knowledge and the vocabulary at the time to be able to explain that I was having meltdowns due to being overstimulated. And because of the time that this was all happening, the adults around me lacked that understanding too. I was just seen as a bad kid who went on violent sprees for no particular reason, and I believed that about myself too. My self-confidence and self-esteem were practically non-existent, and I was severely depressed and anxious. By the time I was in high school, I was having far fewer meltdowns, but I was still getting overwhelmed every single day. It just took a lot more to push me over the edge, so it happened far less often, but it did still happen. My depression and anxiety were worse than ever, but I was better at masking. I wanted nothing more than to just be left the fuck alone. I wanted to be invisible. I wanted to stay at home. I wished I could pause time so I could have all the time to myself that I needed throughout the day. When I was 13, I realised that I liked boys and I didn't like girls. Great, I thought, yet another thing that makes me a fucking weirdo. Yet another thing that I have to hide from everyone around me so they won't make fun of me, get me upset and overwhelmed, and then ultimately get myself in big trouble for having another meltdown. I came out to my parents when I was 16. It's a pretty funny story, actually. It was Guy Fawkes Night. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a thing in the UK where they light a big bonfire and set off fireworks to celebrate the failure of a plot to blow up the Houses of Parliament. I went with my dad to watch the fireworks, and on the way home I somehow managed to pluck up the courage to tell him that I'm gay. I didn't know what to expect. He didn't seem particularly homophobic, and neither did my mum, but I'd also never heard anything from either of them to suggest that they'd be okay with it either. I told my dad, I'm gay, and his response to that was, I'm depressed. Genuinely fucking hilarious in retrospect. Like, okay, I guess we're sharing dark secrets now. My dad was totally autistic too, looking back, but he never got a diagnosis. We got home and I ran up to my room and played Guitar Hero to try and calm my nerves. Then my mum came up and told me that dad had told her and that it was okay and they still love me and all that stuff, and that was that. Around about this time, I'd also start spending a lot more time online in IRC channels, TF2 and Counter-Strike servers and whatnot. I felt like it was much easier to be myself and to interact with others online, and I still do today. Having conversations with other people is a lot easier and more fulfilling when you have the time to actually think about what you want to say, type it out, read it over, maybe edit it, and not hit send until you've actually satisfied with what you've written. There's no rush, no pressure, no need to respond in real time. I have always felt that I express myself far better with the written word than in a live face to face conversation. Another thing I really loved about online social interaction is the ability to choose my own name. I didn't have to go by my birth name. I could pick whatever I wanted, and that's how people would refer to me. I never liked my birth name. It never felt right to me, and having such a troublesome childhood also means that my birth name has a lot of baggage attached to it. It's the name I'm used to hearing when I've gotten in trouble, I'm being scolded, and being bullied, and being given bad news, and so on. Being called by a different name felt like I could let go of all of that and be a lot more confident in myself and enjoy being social for the first time in my life. At 18, I went to college to study music, and on my course there were 3 people with my birth name, including myself. So, to avoid confusion, I ended up with a nickname. I didn't realize it at the time, but this would turn out to be a huge thing for me and my social development. It was like I got all the benefits of an online handle, but in real life. I loved my time in college. I gained a lot of confidence and self esteem and formed strong friendships that I still have to this day. But another thing happened in college was I got introduced to weed. I loved weed. Every few weeks or so, the college stoners and I would meet up at a friend's house to hang out and get stoned, play music, play video games, watch movies, etc. I looked forward to those hangouts and would always feel sad when I left them. Eventually, I started smoking weed on my own as well. This quickly snowballed into a full-blown addiction that lasted for years. I spent every waking second of my life that I could high. I couldn't sleep without ripping a bong before bed. I couldn't eat a meal without ripping a bong beforehand, and I didn't see a problem with that. But eventually, it caught up to me. I must have picked up some stupidly high THC stuff one day because it made me feel like shit. But it was still weed, and I needed to be high, so I just kept smoking it. Well, that night I had the worst panic attack of my life, and it completely broke me. I'm lucky I didn't end up slipping into psychosis. I stopped smoking weed for a while after that. I wasn't sleeping, so I got prescribed sleeping pills. I would start crying over things that had never made me feel anything before. I was a mess. After a few months, I decided to try getting high again. I started slow, just picking up a bit of hash and rolling some weak joints. It just wasn't the same anymore. There was this existential terror that things would go south again, so I quit for good. Then COVID happened. Lockdown was honestly great for me. I didn't like to go outside anyway, so the government telling everyone to stay inside, fine by me. That's what I wanted to do anyway, and there was no reason to feel guilty about it anymore. I stayed at home, talked to the silly little gay people in my computer, played video games, wrote and recorded music, and just had a chill time. But eventually, lockdown ended and everything went back to normal. The normal that I didn't like. My anxiety and depression came back. I had to go outside again. I had to interact with people face to face again. I had to be perceived again. I stopped sleeping again and went to the doctor to get back on those sleeping pills, but instead I got given SSRIs. I was very apprehensive at first. I didn't like the idea of altering my brain chemistry and potentially becoming a zombie despite years of drug abuse. But eventually, with some encouragement from friends who were on the same medication, I started taking it, and within a few weeks I was amazed at the results. It didn't make the anxiety go away, but it definitely turned it down to a much more tolerable level. Life was going fairly smoothly now. My friends encouraged me to finally start dating. I'd never been in a relationship before, never really sought one out. Not because I didn't want one, but because it just felt easier to rot at home than put myself out there. But now that I was on antidepressants, I felt like I was actually able to give it a shot, and so I did. Eventually, I met the man who would be my boyfriend for the next 5 years. I loved the relationship, I loved the companionship, I loved the physical affection, but sex was difficult for us. I won't go into details, but let's just say he was into stuff that I wasn't, and I wasn't particularly interested in having any kind of sex anyway. Like, I'd go along with it when the mood was right, and I'd have fun, but it wasn't something that I really felt like I needed or actively sought out. I was fine with it happening, and I was fine with it not happening. We had an open relationship. He was able to go and engage in whatever he wanted with other guys, and so was I, but I never did because I just didn't want to. I've never understood casual sex. I just can't imagine being intimate with someone that I don't already know very well and deeply trust. I realise now that this is basically asexuality or demisexuality. Um, Trust me though, I know how this all sounds, but I can very sincerely say that I was completely fine with this open relationship. I felt no jealousy whatsoever. It was just sex, and it was sex that I wasn't interested in having anyway. I was just happy that he was happy, and I felt fulfilled by all of the non-sexual intimacy that we shared. But I wasn't really happy. Not because of the relationship, it was on paper everything that I wanted. I truly loved him and cherished every second we spent together. Something else was making me unhappy, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. How is it possible that despite being so deeply in love and so happy with my relationship, I still felt so out of place in the world? I still didn't like to go outside. I didn't like to be seen in public. I just still wanted to live online and be left alone by everyone except for my boyfriend. I became dependent on him to feel comfortable in public, like it was easier to be out and about as a couple than just by myself. I blamed my autism. I've always blamed my autism for these sorts of feelings. It just makes sense when you've been told your whole life that you're wired differently and you don't understand social cues and you're just not like everyone else. It was the perfect answer, except autism can't be cured. And to be clear, I don't think it should be cured. Autistic people should be able to feel comfortable in society without masking. I'd gotten a lot better at not masking out in public. I didn't mask at all when it was just me and my boyfriend alone together. He knew and saw the real me, or at least that's what I thought at the time. He knew about all of my anxieties and insecurities and did a great job at looking after me. But something was still just not quite right, and I still couldn't come up with a reason why other than just, this is my autism, this is just how I am, and this is how I'll always be. It's not the answer I've ever wanted, but it's always the one that's made the most sense to me. The problem with that answer, though, is it's basically saying I'm unhappy because I was born to be unhappy. I have this thing that is never going to go away, and that makes me miserable, and I just have to fucking deal with it. It's a depressing thought, and it's a thought I've had in the back of my mind my whole life. Eventually, the relationship ended. It came as such a shock to me, and suddenly my social safety net and source of comfort was gone. I didn't know who I was without him. I went through all 5 stages of grief about a dozen times. I blamed him, I blamed myself, I lashed out at him, I lashed out at myself. Then eventually I just kind of settled. I felt okay for a little bit. Then I started questioning my gender. I've questioned my gender a lot throughout my life. I've never really been comfortable with being male. People expect certain things from men that I'm extremely uncomfortable living up to. Men are expected to be strong, assertive, stoic, selfless, take control of situations, be leaders. That just isn't me. It's never been me. But I pretended because that's what I was supposed to do. That's how to fit in. But every so often it became too much for me, and I'd really start to question if I actually wanted to be a man. I had so many reasons that I'd tell myself over and over again as to why I couldn't possibly be trans. Men don't have to be masculine. Plenty of men don't conform to gender norms, and they're fine, and they're still men. Societal gender roles are bullshit. Gender as a whole is bullshit. I'm not trans, I'm just fed up with the patriarchy. Of course I feel like I don't fit in and I can't live up to people's expectations of me. I'm fucking autistic. I don't want to be a man, but I don't want to be a woman either. I like my penis, so just stick to the default. It's easier that way. All of these excuses had worked for me in the past, but as I started questioning my gender again after the breakup and told myself all of these things again for the 100th time, it just didn't stick. The voice in my head telling me that I'm not a man wouldn't go away this time. And so, with nothing else left to tell myself, I finally started to take that voice more seriously. And I'm so glad that I did. Yes, men don't have to conform to traditional ideas of masculinity and traditional male gender roles, but I've tried that and it didn't make me feel more comfortable with myself. Yes, gender is bullshit and the patriarchy sucks, but knowing that doesn't change the fact that I hate being treated like a man and I don't feel like a man on the inside. Yes, my autism makes it harder for me to fit in, but I have groups of friends where most or all of them are neurodivergent and I don't have to mask around them, but something still feels out of place. Yes, I don't feel like a woman or particularly want to be a woman, but that doesn't invalidate the feeling of not wanting to be a man either. I already knew what non-binary meant. I have friends who are non-binary. They've even talked to me about their own experiences with figuring out their gender before, and a lot of it was actually very relatable, but I guess I just wasn't ready to put the pieces together until now. I wasn't ready to consider that I might be non-binary myself until now. I've done a lot of thinking, a lot of soul searching, watched countless videos on YouTube from trans and non-binary creators, and I see myself in them. The real me, the me that I've always wanted to be but never allowed myself to be or even knew that I wanted to be. It's all so clear now, it's so obvious. I think back on all the times in my life where I thought my autism was the reason why I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin. No doubt autism has played a role in most or all of those moments. It was a reason I always had, but it was only part of the picture. So many of these experiences are also textbook gender dysphoria. That is what I have been experiencing for so long. It's a very welcome revelation. A lot of these videos I've watched from trans creators about their own experiences, realizing that they're trans, will have a part in it where they say something like, I wanted to be anything but trans. Well, I have a very different perspective. I wanted to be anything but autistic because there was nothing I could do about it. But realizing that so many of the most distressing moments throughout my life that I thought were a result of my autism were actually gender dysphoria, it's the most liberating thing I've ever experienced. I've felt like shit my whole life because I hated being seen as a man, acting like a man, looking like a man. Well, I can do something about that. I don't have to be a man, I can just be me. And that's exactly what I'm doing now, and it feels amazing. I've begun my transition. There's still a lot to figure out. I know I'm non-binary. I know I'm not a man. I'm pretty sure I'm not a woman either. I've been pretending to be so much more masculine than I actually feel on the inside. I've stopped doing that now, and I'm so much happier. My confidence and self-esteem are better than ever. I've been suppressing my feminine side. I've stopped doing that too. Stopped judging myself for wanting to be a bit girly sometimes. I just let it happen now, and it feels wonderful. I've begun to change my appearance. I got a haircut, my first one in over a decade. I've never felt invested in my own appearance before. It's like, why put money and effort into upgrading your car when you actually want a bike? I wanted to cut my hair off for a long time, but I would only look at masculine hairstyles, and quite frankly, I hated all of them. I started looking at gender neutral and feminine hairstyles and suddenly felt like I was spoiled for choice. I got a haircut that's versatile enough that I can make it look as masculine, feminine, or neither as I want. I'm enjoying playing around and experimenting with my hair so much. I still have a long way to go. I want to learn how to apply makeup. I want to experiment with wearing more feminine clothes. I want to experiment more with my femininity in general and find out where my comfort level is. I'm quite open to the possibility now that I could actually be a trans woman, but I need to do a lot more exploration to come to a conclusion about that. The important thing for me right now is that every day I look at myself in the mirror and I see more of myself and less of that stupid costume of manhood that I didn't even know I was wearing. I know I'm on the right path. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and for the first time ever, despite all of the fucked up shit that's happening in this world, I'm actually pretty excited for the future. Excited to finally be the real me. Excited to be comfortable in my own skin. And I hope everyone can feel like this one day. Thanks for watching.